very briefly, I want you to recap just a little bit of your wonderful presentation this morning as a panelist. First of all, can you tell us what you had said to some of the members of Congress about when they were saying that these are just unbearable costs potentially?
I was giving a talk in Washington, D.C. It wasn't just in Congress. And I was talking about how we have to invent our way out of the problem. We need a learning by doing feeding frenzy. But that won't happen because venture capital by itself only wants to pick the winners. So we also have to find out people with good ideas who couldn't get money. So we need public-private partnerships, loan guarantees, and so forth. So a guy in the audience raises his hand wearing a three-piece suit, and he says, well, Dr. Schneider, how much do you think that might cost? And I said, well, I don't know. Technology development's not cheap, 10, 20, maybe even $30 billion a year for the next 15, 20 years to prime the pump. And he said, don't you read the newspapers? Are you crazy? We're in a fiscal crisis. We can't spend that kind of money. And so the moderator said, would you please answer the congressman's question? I said, oh, well, Congressman, didn't you probably vote, because it was a large majority, to spend $750 billion in 1 year to bail out a bunch of greedy, under-regulated bankers? You can't spend 2 to 3% of that every year in order to have green jobs and more sustainable planet? And he said, I didn't say me, I'm just referring to what my colleagues do. I agree with you. I said, well, then you better tell your colleagues to look in the mirror and see if the person looking back at them needs a values transplant. Because we're talking about gut check values and we're making the wrong priority decisions.
Thank you. Now, I just want to get a quick reaction from you also on these ads that are now running in Virginia, and they have a very active website, growing Facebook fan base in terms of CO2 is green. CO2 is actually good for the planet, and we should be creating more and more of it. What are your thoughts on that group and their activities right now?
One of the things I do most when I talk to my students, when they say, how do I discern who's telling me the truth, is I said, 80% of what you're going to get is learning how to figure out who's giving you the north end of a southbound horse. You're going to get it from media, you're going to get it from politicians, you're going to get it from businesses. These guys, CO2 is plant food, isn't it great for us? They are simply special interests in polluting because that's where their market share comes from. What did they forget to tell us? Yes, indeed, CO2 is a fertilizer of green plants. Weeds are green plants. Pollen that causes asthma is green plants. It also fertilizes the weeds. And they never told you it increases the acidity of the ocean. And that acidification, which is documented, it's not speculative, and is going to become very serious over the century if we keep using the atmosphere as a free sewer to dump tailpipe and smokestack waste that these guys want to get paid to generate.
When you say these guys, what's their funding coming from?
This is the coal lobby. It's the coal and oil lobby. They're the guys that are polluting. You think they want rules that are going to make it more expensive for them to pollute and give a benefit to the less polluting technologies, which is what any free market has to do. It has to charge in the price of doing business all the costs, including the kids who go to the hospital with asthma, the adults who die with emphysema, the rising sea levels, the elimination of islands. They're not paying for any of this. They're free market frauds because the free market has to include it all.
So, I think you said on the stage or afterwards that they're liars. Is that?
Well, I think that anybody who knows that CO2 doesn't just fertilize green plants that you like, but it also fertilizes weeds and acidifies the oceans, threatening the oceanic food chain, and doesn't say that is a liar.
And there's last question, real quickly. They do have scientists that are part of their backup, if you will. Can you talk a little bit about those scientists and what you think of them diagnosing this particular problem?
Very few scientists who are called climate skeptics are actually climate researchers. A number of proposals have been funded to study these guys. And what they found out is that the relative rate at which their work is cited is about a factor of 5 less than the rate at which the mainstream scientists in the National Academy of Science or IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, are working. When I first was confronted, we have 17,000 signatures of scientists, mostly petroleum geologists, and I said that they're as competent in climate science as I am in predicting peak oil. They have nothing to say because they don't know what they're talking about. They're a vested interest in oil exploration. What do you expect? And to say that all PhDs are created equal is to say all MDs are created equal. and I have a heart arrhythmia and I have a very bad toe. So if all doctors are equal, just like all scientists, then I should go to my podiatrist and ask him for the heart medicine, and go to my cardiologist who hasn't done surgery in 35 years to take off my toenail, probably cut off the wrong foot. They're not experts. They should not be given any credibility. That's why we have a National Research Council, which does bring the experts together of all points of view, and then gives carefully considered, with what we know well and what we have competing explanations and what's speculative. And what these special interests do, I'm sorry, from all sides, is they grab out of context the little bit that fits their ideology, their client's interests, and they count on the media to use a political model of reporting. Get the Democrat, get the Republican, which is completely inappropriate to science, which is not end of the world versus good for you, but a graduated set of multiple outcomes for which we put relative confidence on. They report none of that. No wonder everybody's confused.
Okay.
It's all in my next book, Science is a Contact Sport.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.